If you're someone who loves a good cocktail party, then you've probably eaten every finger food in the book. But have you noticed that none of the recipes these days hold a candle to the party food we had in the 60s? What was it about these otherworldly meals that hit the spot time and time again? What did party hosts in the 60s know that we don't know? To uncover these secrets, join us as we dig up 20 party food favorites from that era that we have unfortunately abandoned. 20. Chicken liver rumaki. Back then, this appetizer was just as loved as shag carpets and lava lamps. Many folks thought rumaki must have originated in some distant island, but the thing is, it wasn't even remotely Polynesian. Rumaki is widely believed to have been invented in the US, possibly by the Trader Vic's tiki chain, which made America believe that dunking any meat in soy sauce could shoot them away to the islands. Chicken livers were wrapped in bacon, skewered on a toothpick, with a water chestnut sometimes thrown in for a baffling crunch. The real magic was the marinade: soy sauce, ginger, brown sugar, maybe a touch of garlic. You'd soak the chicken livers in the marinade for about half an hour, letting them take in the sweet salty magic, then wrap them up with the bacon and water chestnuts. A few minutes under the broiler, and there you had it. A bite-sized appetizer that probably went down better with a Mai Tai in hand. It was a perfect trifecta of flavor: sweet, savory, and smoky. Who wouldn't love that combo? Coming up next is a 60s party food that is somehow even more interesting than any liver rumaki, but somehow it still managed to disappear. 19. Tunnel of fudge. This dessert was so fantastically sweet that it practically begged to be the star of every 60s gathering. This cake was a bundt pan miracle. It combined chocolate with an engineering marvel, which was none other than the elusive tunnel of molten chocolate inside. The tunnel of fudge cake became a household legend thanks to the 1966 Pillsbury Bake Off, where contestant Ella Rita Helfrich introduced this creation to a world that had no idea how much it needed an accidental lava cake. The recipe took advantage of a new bundt pan from Nordic Ware, transforming an ordinary chocolate cake mix and adding one unexpectedly hefty dose of nuts. These nuts helped stabilize the outer edges of the cake, while the center remained a gooey chocolate tunnel with no fancy fillings or syringes of molten chocolate required dot. The final result was a ring of pure mystery that had guests salivating the moment they set eyes on it. Are you missing it already? Come to think of it, there's one other long, forgotten dish that is gearing up to make a comeback real soon. 18. Ambrosia. Ambrosia was so mythical that it's named after the food of the gods, yet somehow involves mini marshmallows. It was a salad, in the way only mid-century cuisine could define it. Imagine a fruit cocktail, shredded coconut, and dollops of Cool Whip coming together in a sticky, pastel-colored bowl of culinary mystery. For a generation, it was the perfect blend. The origins trace all the way back to the South, where fresh oranges and coconut were the stars. But the 1960s version leaned into the era's fascination with convenience, so canned fruit cocktails became the base. Each spoonful was a symphony of textures that sang sweet melodies until you woke up the next day. It was impossible for the syrupy mandarin oranges, squishy marshmallows, and a grated coconut to simply wash away after one night. To make things even more interesting, some daring cooks tossed in the maraschino cherries or a handful of pecans, because apparently there's no such thing as asterisk too much asterisk in the world of ambrosia. Feel free to experiment with different combinations because the flavors you can get out of this simple bowl are mind-blowing. Speaking about mind-blowing, our next dish goes so well with a party that it should probably be illegal. 17. Smoked oysters. Smoked oysters may have come straight from a tin, but that didn't stop them from setting an unreachable standard. Back then, canned smoked oysters were considered the height of sophistication. The appeal was the rich, complex taste that made them feel so different from anything you've ever eaten. Packed in oil, each oyster had a smooth, velvety texture with a burst of intense smokiness and just a hint of the sea. Serve them on a cracker, top with a dash of the horseradish, maybe a squeeze of lemon, and just like that, you had a canapé that demanded a martini to wash it down. To serve smoked oysters with true retro flair, lay them out on a silver platter, set out an array of garnishes like lemon wedges and cocktail sauce, and let your guests assemble their own bites. If you're feeling really on your game, throw in a few olives and a sprig of the parsley for garnish. Just one bite, and it's like you're right back in the good old days. At this point, I have to prepare you for a blast from the past because your taste buds might kick up a storm when you hear what's coming next. 16. Ants on a log. The origin of ants on a log is a bit murky, but it was certainly a hit in mid-century America as a quick and easy way to get kids involved in the kitchen. It also served as a somewhat nutritious treat for after-school snacks, but it only really made its name as a finger food at parties. Making it couldn't be easier. Take a stalk of celery, spread the peanut butter down the center, and scatter raisins along the top. Some versions even threw in a dash of honey or sprinkled with some nuts for extra texture. And while it might not win any awards for complexity, it was undeniably a rock star cocktail parties. If you didn't have one on your menu, then it was better not to have a party at all. Only one other menu item could possibly hope to replace this irresistible option, and that is none other than the next entry on our list. 15. Party cheese ball. The party cheese ball was so iconic that it practically wore a tuxedo to every gathering in the 60s. This was the appetizer you made when you wanted to feel like you were hosting the swankiest soiree on the block. The origin of the cheese ball goes back to the early 1900s, but it was made with all the stuff you'd find in a basic fridge: cream cheese, sharp cheddar, Worcestershire sauce, garlic powder, and a coating of chopped pecans or walnuts. To make the classic cheese ball, blend cream cheese and cheddar together with a little mayo and a hint of Worcestershire sauce for a savory base. Then, season with garlic powder and a few dashes of cayenne if you're feeling adventurous. Roll it all into a ball and coat with our chopped nuts. Why have party food without a little crunch? Next, refrigerate it until you're ready to impress your guests. Serve with crackers, and prepare for compliments because they are definitely going to come. While our next dish didn't have any cheese involved, it certainly found a way to make itself the main character of the menu. 14. Beef bourguignon. It's the kind of recipe that makes any dinner party feel like a scene from Bridget Jones's Diary, but in reality, it's essentially a beef stew dressed up in its best wine-soaked gown. Popularized by none other than the Julia Child, beef bourguignon became the ultimate challenge for home cooks. If you could conquer this dish, you could conquer anything THD cooking shows threw at you. This classic dish hails from the Burgundy region of France, where locals paired beef with their famous red wine. To make it, simmer beef chunks in wine, add aromatics like onions, garlic, and herbs, and let everything braise for hours until the beef is so tender it practically melts in your mouth. But the devil's in the details, because the right wine, the right cut of beef, and just the right amount of patience are required to pull it off without a hitch. The longer it simmers, the better it gets, as the beef becomes tender and soaks up all the flavors of the wine and herbs. Up next is a sweet dessert that made you think you had been teleported to Willy Wonka's chocolate factory because you couldn't stop stuffing yourself with it. 13. Chiffon pie. The pie itself is a delicate blend of fruit, sugar, and egg whites, giving it a texture so airy you might wonder if it is actually floating. Chiffon pie actually has the most iconic flavor. There was lemon, of course, because if you're going to be that fluffy, you might as well be tart and refreshing too. But you could find other variations like orange, lime, or even chocolate. To make this marvel of whipped delight, you start by making a citrus-flavored base with juice, zest, and eggs, then add sugar and a bit of gelatin to help everything set. Once that's chilled and ready, you fold in beaten egg whites to give the pie its trademark lightness. After pouring the filling into a pre-baked pie crust like a graham cracker, you let it chill until it's firm enough to hold that ethereal structure. It's no wonder those parties has most of us in a chokehold. When you have dishes like chiffon pie and the next entry on our list, what could really go wrong? 12. Stuffed cherry tomatoes. This appetizer added a pop of color to any spread while offering a surprising burst of flavor. What made them the bomb wasn't just their tiny size or their vibrant red color, but the fact that you could stuff them with almost anything. Cream cheese, mayonnaise, herbs, or even tuna salad. You name it. The tomato was the perfect vessel for all manner of fillings. To bring these tasty treats to life, you'd start by carefully cutting the tops off the tomatoes and scooping out the insides, leaving the delicate shell intact. From there, the world was your oyster. Fillings could range from a creamy mixture of cream cheese, mayonnaise, and fresh herbs to more adventurous takes like shrimp salad or even a simple tuna concoction. After stuffing them, the tomatoes would chill in the fridge until party time. Plus, if you forgot the exact recipe, you could always just wing it with whatever you had in the fridge. It really takes us back to the good old days when food was really food. Not many dishes can meet that spec, but our next entry remains evergreen for this exact reason. 11. Cheese straws. Cheese straws were the kind of thing you could nibble on between sips of martinis or shove into your mouth when you need something to tide you over before the main course. Whether served on a fancy silver tray or casually placed in a bowl, cheese straws were the understated saviors of empty stomachs. They were often served alongside olives, smoked oysters, or any other snack that had you rubbing elbows with high society. To make your own cheese straws, you start by blending sharp cheddar cheese with flour and butter to create a crumbly, dough-like mixture. Then, for the fun part, you roll out the dough and cut it into thin strips, twisting each one into a spiral, or just leaving it long and straight to get extra points for appearance. After baking until golden brown and delightfully crisp, you'll have a tray of cheese straws that will disappear faster than you can say, "Pass the olives." So go ahead, grab one or 20. No one's going to stop you. Cheese straws remain almost impossible to replicate, much like the next dish on this list. 10. Lipton Onion Soup Dip. Also known as the king of quick and easy, this dip didn't have to try hard to impress. Take a packet of Lipton onion soup mix it with sour cream, and boom, you had a dip that everyone claimed was just like Mom used to make, even though it only took about 30 seconds to prepare. The dip's origins trace back to Lipton, which in the 50s was looking for ways to make its instant soup mixes more appealing. In a flash of marketing brilliance, they promoted their onion soup mix as the base for a party dip, and it took off like wildfire. By the 60s, it was a must-have at every cocktail hour, sitting proudly alongside chips, crackers, or veggies. While it may not have been a gourmet dish, Lipton Onion Soup Dip had a pure retro vibe. So next time you're hosting a gathering and need something that's simple, quick, and guaranteed to be a hit, just remember the magic of Lipton Onion Soup Dip. Sometimes, the best things are the ones you don't have to overthink. While this dip produced a comfortable meal without requiring a lot of fuss, our next dish was the perfect example of high risk, high rewards. 9. Amish Yum Yum Salad. This party popper has a name that promises exactly what it delivers. It's a dish that could easily have been served at a church potluck or a casual dinner party, as it balances that fine line between something that feels like a salad and yet could almost double as dessert. The origins of Amish Yum Yum Salad aren't exactly well documented, but it's generally believed to have come from the Pennsylvania Dutch country, where people were well versed in creating dishes that were just a tad too sweet to be considered salads in the modern sense. To make your own Amish Yum Yum Salad, you start with a creamy base of mayonnaise and whipped topping, then mix in fruit cocktail and marshmallows. A little crushed pineapple adds just enough tropical flair to make you feel like you're being adventurous, even though you're still eating what's essentially fruit and fluff in a bowl. The final touch often includes a handful of nuts or shredded coconut. Once it's all mixed together, it's chilled, allowing the flavors to meld and the salad to set into a sweet, wobbly masterpiece. It may not be complicated, but if you ever crave a taste of bold ambition, it might be worth it to take a look at our next dish. 8. Mushroom and leek strudel. This dish was one of the more sophisticated entries on party menus, yet still within the realm of easy to prepare. A savory pastry filled with earthy mushrooms and leeks, all wrapped in flaky, buttery dough. Mushroom and leek strudel was part of the greater trend in the 60s toward incorporating European influences into American cooking, particularly French and Austrian. The classic strudel filling was a blend of mushrooms, onions, and sometimes even a touch of cream. To make this retro treat, you'd begin by sautéing the mushrooms and leeks in butter, letting their flavors develop while adding a bit of salt, pepper, and perhaps some herbs like thyme or rosemary. The mixture would then be cooled, rolled up in thin layers of phyllo dough, and baked until golden brown and crispy. Then you'll get a delicate, flaky pastry with a rich, earthy filling that could be sliced into perfect little bite-sized pieces for your guests. Mushroom and leek strudel might not be as well known as cheese dips or shrimp cocktails, but it certainly made the right statement. And if it's a statement you're looking for, well, look no further than our next entry. 7. Pigs in a blanket. Sure, at first glance it's just mini sausages wrapped in dough, but let's not diminish the genius of this combination. A snack that can be whipped up in minutes yet somehow always gets the much-needed oohs and ahs. The origins of pigs in a blanket are hard to pin down, but variations of the dish have existed in different forms across cultures for centuries. It was both a comforting snack and a semi-elegant treat that worked for any occasion, whether it was a cocktail hour or a casual Sunday afternoon. To make pigs in a blanket, you simply take cocktail-sized sausages, wrap them up in pre-made dough, and bake them until they're golden and crispy. Some even dared to get experimental with cheese-filled versions or a dab of mustard before rolling, but the classic is always the best. Serving pigs in a blanket was always a hit because they were just so universally appealing, whether you dipped them in mustard, ketchup, or a tangy barbecue sauce. And let's tell the truth here. A party without pigs in a blanket was practically an incomplete one. 6. Chicken a la king. Did someone say retro dinner party? That must mean they're serving chicken a la king. This dish, with its velvety sauce, chunks of chicken, mushrooms, and sometimes a splash of sherry, was the ultimate example of mid-century American dining. The exact origins of chicken a la king are a bit debated, but it's believed to have emerged in a restaurant setting, with various claims linking it to a chef named William King at a hotel in New York, or a chef at the famous Waldorf Astoria. To make chicken a la king, you start with sautéed chicken and mushrooms. Leftover roasted chicken is a perfect shortcut. You then combine them in a rich, creamy sauce made with cream, butter, and a touch of flour for thickening. Sometimes a splash of the sherry or white wine would be added for a bit of sophistication, though some versions stuck to just the basics. If you want an ultra-niche taste of the 60s party scene, then our next dish is a perfect throwback to a memorable era. 5. Shrimp and feta cucumber rounds. This dish lived up to the legend. It had the kind of light, fresh bites that were all the rage. While the dish itself didn't have a specific classic moment of origin, it fits perfectly into the mid-century trend of incorporating seafood into almost every part of the menu. Shrimp, being one of the more accessible forms of luxury, was often the star of these party bites. Throw in a dash of Greek influence like feta cheese, and you have a light snack that could send your guests to Mount Olympus. To make these delightful little rounds, you slice a cucumber into thick, bite-sized discs, just thick enough to support the toppings but still fresh and crunchy. From there, you pile a little crumbled feta cheese on each slice, add a piece of cooked shrimp on top, and finish with a drizzle of lemon juice, maybe some fresh dill, or a tiny sprinkling of paprika for color. With shrimp and feta, it's hard to go wrong. The combination of creamy feta, briny shrimp, and the fresh crunch of cucumber makes for an appetizer that's more than the sum of its parts. It's everything 60s cocktail culture could have hoped for. Fast food that you don't get to eat every other day, which is a special power our next dish had in abundance. 4. Cranberry Waldorf salad. Why settle for the classic when you can add a splash of seasonal color and a touch of tartness? With its origins dating back to the 1890s, the Waldorf salad was already a staple at upscale dinner parties. But by the 60s, the addition of cranberries gave it a seasonal upgrade, making it a festive must-have for holiday gatherings. The salad still kept its signature combination of crisp apples, celery, and walnuts, but the cranberries were the twist that made it feel a little more modern. To make cranberry Waldorf salad, you start with a base of crunchy apples like Granny Smith's, which are great for a tart contrast. Then you add thinly sliced celery for some bite and a generous handful of walnuts for texture. Then you toss everything in a dressing made from mayonnaise and a little bit of cream or sour cream to give it a smooth, rich base. The real magic comes from the cranberries, which can either be added fresh for a tart bite or cooked into a slightly sweetened cranberry sauce to balance the richness of the mayo dressing. Some versions even sneak in a few marshmallows for extra sweetness. When you are looking for flavor profiles that push into new frontiers, why not try something that makes the brain ask what on earth you just ate? But cranberries are only the beginning. Are you looking for a new recipe to surprise your guests with? Look no further, because our next entry is the peak of experimental cocktail party food. 3. Dilled mushroom turnovers. Sometimes you need a savory pastry with a touch of class, and what better way to impress guests than with mushrooms and dill tucked inside flaky pastry? The earthy flavor of mushrooms, paired with the sharp, aromatic kick of dill, was a combination that could transform simple ingredients. The origin of dilled mushroom turnovers likely ties back to the larger mid-century love affair with a puff pastry and savory stuffed pastries. Puff pastry, a feat of light and crispy dough, was all the rage in the 60s, often used to encase a variety of fillings, everything from meats to seafood to vegetables. Mushrooms, with their earthy, umami flavor, were a popular choice for stuffing, and when combined with dill, a herb that had made its way into mainstream cooking by this time. To make these turnovers, you'd begin by sautéing finely chopped mushrooms with a bit of butter, adding fresh dill and seasoning to taste. The mixture would be cooled slightly and then wrapped in pre-made puff pastry or a quick homemade dough. Each pastry would be folded over to encase the filling and then baked until golden brown and crisp. Dilled mushroom turnovers were often seen at cocktail parties or as part of the hors d'oeuvres spread at dinner parties, where the goal was always to show off just a little bit. They were easy to eat and had just the right combination of herbaceous flavors to keep your guests nibbling without feeling stuffed. Anything in puff pastry is an automatic win. 2. Guess again carrots. Nothing says "I'm a party pro" quite like tricking your guests into eating a healthy side dish, when in fact, they're about to enjoy a sweet, buttery, and absolutely indulgent treat. These carrots weren't actually about the carrots at all, but instead were a nod to the sweetened, candied vegetables that could somehow pass as both appetizers and desserts. In the case of Guess Again carrots, the dish took on a more playful tone, thanks to its unexpected use of ingredients like orange gelatin and whipped cream. You see, these were the carrots you could serve at a dinner party to be clever, funny, and delicious all at once. Originating from molded salads and gelatin-based dishes, Guess Again. Carrots came to life when cooks wanted to serve something that would make you do a double take. The carrots are actually made of orange-flavored gelatin, creating a sweet and jiggly mold that, when shaped properly, could resemble actual carrots. The addition of whipped cream makes the whole thing lighter and fluffier, and the dish was often garnished with a sprinkle of cinnamon or even chopped nuts for texture, just to throw in a little extra surprise. To make Guess Again carrots, you would begin by dissolving a packet of orange gelatin in hot water, then chilling it until it thickens slightly. After that, the gelatin is mixed with whipped cream and sometimes a bit of sour cream or cream cheese for tang. The whole mixture is then shaped into carrot-like forms, either by hand or in a mold, and chilled until firm. The result is a sweet, creamy, almost mousse-like texture that definitely doesn't resemble any real carrot in sight. But when served at a dinner party, you'll get plenty of guesses as to what exactly this dish is. These fake carrots may have quietly slipped into obscurity, but our next dish was probably deemed too weird for modern tastes. 1. Surf and turf. This surf and turf recipe transforms your home kitchen into a fine dining haven. This dish captures the essence of a high-end steakhouse experience, but with the coziness of staying in. When the host was in the mood for something truly special, surf and turf was their go-to. The balance of flavors is unmatched. The rich, beefy steak contrasts beautifully with the sweet, briny lobster, creating a pairing that feels so special. And it's all tied together with a fresh herb butter that adds a bright, spring-like note to every bite. Now, I know what you're thinking. Sounds amazing, but isn't surf and turf complicated? Surprisingly, no. This dish is one of those restaurant-worthy meals that's actually straightforward to make at home. Most of the ingredients can be prepped in advance, so when it's time to cook, you're just minutes away from plating up. The lobster bakes in the oven, developing a tender, juicy texture, while the steak sears to a perfect crust on the stovetop. Both finish at the same time, leaving you with a seamless, stress-free dinner that looks as incredible as it tastes. What you get is a perfectly seared, buttery filet mignon topped with a luxurious herb butter, paired with a succulent lobster tail stuffed with a crisp lemon-scented crumb topping. So, whether you're treating yourself or impressing a special someone, this surf and turf recipe is one to remember. So what do you think of these old but loved recipes? Have you tried any of them recently? Let us know what caught your eye in the comments. As always, remember to like, subscribe, and share this video with your pals to keep the fun going. See you next time.